Okay, peeps, welcome back. So today we're going to be going over the Bitcoin miner stocks and also Coinbase. Excuse me. And we're also going to be going over our futures trades for the morning. So with that being said, let's get it. So the first thing that we're going to go over here is the stuff that you guys want, of course, which is the profit making money makers here, the Bitcoin miner stocks. When Bitcoin goes up, these miner stocks are going to go up. That's generally how it works. So first one is BTBT. Both the MACD and the RSI are bullish. They're above the break-even level. BTBT is kind of chopping around right now, which is not really surprising because Bitcoin's also doing something very similar. If we just scroll down here real quick. Sorry, it's going to take a minute because we really have a lot on our watch list here. So you guys can see if we just take a look at the price of Bitcoin on the weekly. As soon as it pops up, here we go. It's kind of not really doing much. It's not pushing up, but it's not pushing down. It's kind of just moving sideways at this point. Granted, this is a weekly candle, so if we actually go down a little bit here to the daily candles, you guys can see it's kind of just pretty much doing exactly what the miners are doing. It's just going sideways. So once again, the Bitcoin miners, Litecoin, and Bitcoin Cash, or I should say also Bitcoin Gold and Bitcoin Satoshi Vision, which are two projects we don't invest in, but all of those are oscillators to Bitcoin. So when Bitcoin goes up, they'll go up. When Bitcoin goes down, they'll go down. And when Bitcoin goes sideways, well, they'll go sideways. So getting back to the miner stock here. Sorry, fellas, it's taking a long time to load for some reason. So I would say that BTBT is probably still a buy right now. I mean, could it go back to the support zone? Yeah, sure. The support zone is between $1.50 to $2, but I mean, I don't know. If I was going to start DCing into this thing, I'd do it now because it's pretty cheap. When we take a look at the maximum drawdown that we've seen so far from the peak to where it is right now, it's about a 50% drop. So a pretty good discount, if you ask me. And if we inverse this and say, okay, let's just say you pop in a large amount now, where, I mean, yeah, I guess you could do that. That's generally how we do our swing trades. We just put a bulk amount in. So it depends on what the charts tell us, but generally speaking, that's what we do. So there's potential for at least a 90% upside. If you manage to wait to get it down here in this support box, which is entirely up to you, you could make as much as 190%. And the resistance is between 420 to 520 per share. Before we go any further here, just wanted to show you guys our options trades. So we do still have 5 contracts up. As of right now, we put one up for HUD 8, which we're actually doing really good on. We got some pretty juicy premiums on this. It's roughly about a month out, which is, I think, after the amount of research we've done, I would say a monthly option is probably comfortable because we're really busy. We don't have time to do zero DTEs or weekly options or anything like that. So I would say a month is good to just keep a bird's eye view of this and kind of see how it's doing, see if we need to close early or whatever. But our 5 contracts are still currently going. And we could click on all of these right now, but basically all of these are still below the strike price. I believe CIFR is at 340, so that's just below the strike price. Well, it was just below the strike price before we rolled it. Sorry about that. So it's at $5, so it's well below. BTBT is 278 and HUD 8 is 868. If we go back up here to the strike prices, you guys can see that the strike prices are pretty much all above what the current market price is. And so when we do options trades, we always put the strike price above our average cost basis. So that way, if our shares get called away, we get the premium and we get guaranteed profit, just so you all know. So going on to CIFR. Again, very choppy, just like Bitcoin. I would say that the indicators down here are still bullish, although they are chopping sideways. Definitely not good for day trading. Or swing trading, I would say this is potentially more of like a position play, in my opinion, because with a swing trade, you want to see something like this. So you want to see this kind of really large move up. Like you get this close above the EMAs, and then we would get in like right here at 130, and then boom, just ride it all the way up. You want to see something like that. You don't really want to see something like this where it just kind of chops around. That's better for position trading. So, anyways, with that being said, the current support's between 220 to about 270. Resistance is between I'd say about $5 even to about 560 a share. Now, if we take a look at the pullback from this, so from the peak to the current price, that's about a 40% discount. If we inverse this and we say, okay, I want to buy in now and I want to wait till the peak, you're going to look at roughly about a 65% gain. Now, if you somehow manage to get your cost basis down here in this box, you'd be looking at potentially as much as 126%. So that's CIFR. This is the BITF. This is a request we had, so that's why we're including this one. This one is very bullish in comparison to BTBT and CIFR, so I would rather buy BTBT and CIFR over this. That's just my opinion. But this zone here, I would still say is a resistance because we haven't really seen like a large body close above this thing. It's just barely poking its head out. That's not convincing to me that this thing is actually going to have a huge move up. So I would say this is still resistance. This is still support. So your immediate support's between $2 to $2.36. The macro support is 39 cents to about, I'd say roughly about 90 cents. And your resistance between $3 to about 3.60 per share. So if you manage to get it down here in this box, you'd be looking at roughly about a 72% move to the upside. Now from the most recent peak to where it is currently, it's a 14% discount, so that's not bad, but it's not even sitting at the EMAs. So again, I wouldn't really want to buy this thing unless it was at the EMAs. But of course, technical analysis is more complicated than that. That's just, for these particular assets, that's just kind of how we're seeing this. So now we'll go to HUD 8. HUD 8 is much more of a better buy, in my opinion, than BitF. Nothing against BitF. It could potentially be a great play, but again, we are looking at the potential upside here. So in terms of the pullback is pretty large, so about 62%. You guys can see why we loaded the boat on 100 shares and wrote a covered call on this, because it is extremely cheap right now. So your support is between $3.50 per share to about $8.90 per share, and the resistance is between $17.30 to, let's say, roughly about $22.50. So if you manage to pick it up now, which in my opinion is a great price, you'd be looking at anywhere from potentially 117 to about a 166% gain. So now going over to RIOT. We're going to cover the big two, then we're going to go into the Coinbase one. So RIOT's macro support is 360 per share to 530 per share. The immediate support is 870 per share to 1030 per share. And 818 to about $21 is going to be about your resistance. So if we measure from the peak to where it currently sits, it's down about 24%, which is actually pretty good for one of these larger cap Bitcoin miner stocks, because RIOT and Mara are basically the two leaders among the Bitcoin miners. They're the biggest at market cap, so that's actually a pretty good discount if you ask me. From the current price to the peak is a 33% gain. Keep in mind, our typical swing trade is about 15%, so that's basically two trades right there. That is pretty good, but we would probably wait to get to the price roughly about the EMAs if we were going to get it. We missed out on that, obviously, because we picked up the BTBT HUD 8 and CIFR ones instead of RIOT, which you guys can see just last month it was down here, so it's possible it could go down there again. So if you manage to get it around 1250, you'd be looking at potentially around 63%. If you manage to somehow pick it up, let's just say at this bottom here again in this box, potentially 111%. So now we're going to go ahead and cover Mara. I would say that RIOT is probably a better deal at this point than Mara. Mara is trying to push all-time highs. If I would have bought Mara, I would have been buying it down here at these EMAs. Like I said, you guys can see it bounced almost perfectly off of that. I would not be buying it right here, but to each their own. So the current discount is roughly about 21%. It's pretty good, but it's not as good as Mara. Definitely not as good as HUD 8. So if we let's see, if we measure from the low to the high here, you're going to get about 36%, assuming that this thing does close at the bottom here, which if it does, I would say it's probably going to go lower because that would be a bearish engulfing candle. Now, let's say you got it in support here at roughly about 19 bucks. You could be potentially looking at as much as 65% move to the upside. And then again, your major macro support zone is the first one, I should say, is going to be between $7.30 to $12, and then the lowest point is going to be $3.50 to about $5.50 per share. So now we're going to go over Coinbase. Coinbase has absolutely ripped. Just want to show you guys this real quick on our account, so you guys can see we have been loading the boat on Coney. We actually, I wouldn't generally speak about this before the video comes out, but we have taken some profits on Nvidia this week and moved some of that money into Coney, just so you all know, because of course, you know, the crypto bull run's coming up and we want to be in positions that are going to benefit from that. So you can see we've reduced our cost basis substantially from 30 down to about 25 and a half. We're not down nearly as much as we were, and we have a lot more shares. And of course, the higher the price goes, the more options premiums, aka dividends, whatever you want to call it, from YieldMax, we're going to get paid. So this green candle body close above these candles here, I would say, is pretty bullish. Probably definitely want to see another green follow-up candle on this thing to be convinced that it is actually going to move up into this next resistance here. But if we take the measured move, you're looking at roughly about 10% from that previous high. From the current high, it would be about 14%, so that's not bad. Again, if we were going to pick this up, we would have done so in the EMAs. You guys can see it basically bounced perfectly, broke this downtrend, and then boom, absolutely popped to the upside. So your current support is between 150.56 to 173, and resistance basically between about 210 to about 228. The next support level below the current one is 104 and all the way up to 113. So let's just say you decided to get somewhere in the zone, because you know it does look like this is actually going to hold a support. So you could be taking a look at as much as 30% to roughly about 42%. That's not bad. Keep in mind, we'll take a look at the macro chart here. You guys can see that the price of coin obviously is most likely going to go much higher than just $230 a share. But we're just talking about the immediate short-term prices here. So whether you choose to pick up Coinbase or Coney, that's entirely up to you. But this is basically the buy and sell zones. Now, with that being said, we're going to go ahead and get into the actual trades here. So basically, it's okay. So it says that we made $1,586 on the day. That's actually not true. I don't know why it keeps doing this. It's a little bit weird if you ask me, but basically, the real number is roughly about $790 or about $800 in profit. So pretty much what we were looking at here is, let's actually pull up the chart of the NASDAQ. We were actually considering trading oil over the NASDAQ this morning because it looked like a better trade, but the NASDAQ had this really, really sharp pullback after a strong move up. So we said, okay, we'll just go ahead and try the NASDAQ instead. Turns out that basically either one of these futures contracts would have been a nice instrument to trade for the morning. So just got to wait for it to load. Sorry about that. For some reason, it is really taking a long time as of lately. Okay, so for some reason, the support zones are not loading. I don't know what the heck is going on here, but it's being really slow for some odd reason. But basically, we'll just draw a line through here so you guys can pretty much see that if we take a look at this, you can see that this resistance was holding for a long time, basically through the Europe session. Just so you guys know, the Europe session on Pacific Standard Time starts at midnight, so it'd be 3 a.m. for people on the East Coast, and the U.S. session starts at 6:30 or 9:30 Eastern Time. So basically, ever since the Europe Open, or slightly past the Europe Open here, we've kind of held this level as resistance. Once we got a break above it, we had this massive push to the upside, and then it sold back down. That's when we said, okay, let's go ahead and get in. So we got in, and we basically were taking contracts off the table as this thing started ripping. And then we got a second wind. It came back down here again to these EMAs. So we said, okay, we're going to get in. Worst case scenario, we get stopped out. We're still in the money. And then boom, it ripped up again. And we, of course, were scaling out of our contracts as this thing was going up. So that's pretty much what you're seeing here on the charts. So we got all these contracts filled here at roughly about 17,902. I think one of these trades we did actually get stopped out on, I believe. Trying to think of which one it was. Okay, so yeah, so we basically got 17,903, 17,903 here, so that's 5 contracts. So it looks like we did get stopped out on this one, so it went up, then came back down, stopped us out, and we're like, well, crap. Now what? So basically, so I think what happened is we got in here, it ripped up, and then it kind of came back down. So we're like, okay, we're just going to hold it. And then on this next candle, it came down again, stopped us out. So I think what actually happened is when it moved up, we moved our stop from where it normally would be, which is a 30-point loss. So it's a 100-point gain for a 30-point loss, so about 3-to-1 risk. And then we moved our stop up to break even. Candle came back down, which does happen sometimes. It stopped us out. And then we got back in on the dip here. And then we took 2 contracts, as you can see here, at 50 points. So that hit. And then we took another 2 contracts just below 50 points because it didn't look like it was going to keep going back up or keep moving up again. Part of the reason for that was because, well, we can't show you here on the charts, but there's like this macro downtrend line that the price was hitting. And that's basically pretty much the reason why we closed it out, because it got rejected off of that. And of course, exactly what we thought was going to happen happened. It dumped. So we took our profits on these trades, got back in down here at 17,908. We ended up hitting 2 contracts at our 50-point target. So we have 2 contracts that have a 50-point target and 3 that have a 100-point target. We're a little bit more flexible with the last 3, but the first 2 are basically set in stone. That's just to lock some profit in and then move our stop up to break even so we can at least make something on the trade. If we don't get the full trade, at least we get a little something out of it. So we took another contract off here at about 20 points. Took another one roughly at about that 50. And then the last one we took all the way up here at about 70 points because basically we were not convinced that this thing was going to go any higher. And that's because it never had a candle close above any of these wicks here, as you guys can see. So we had candle bodies that moved up above these previous ones. But again, the wicks weren't like pushing really super high up there. So we weren't convinced. We just went ahead and got out and made a nice $800 trade. And that's also on top of the roughly $700 in swing trades profits that we made this morning. So anyways, this is the video on the Bitcoin miner stocks and Coinbase and our day trades for this morning in futures. Hope you all enjoyed this content. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see y'all later. Peace.